What is up, Denver sports fans, and welcome on in to the rundown. Anilo Piro once again in for Richie Carney. Hope all of you are doing well out there. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. It really helps us out here on the channel. And if you're watching on Facebook or X, we love you guys as well. Thank you for your continued support here of the program. Richie is on assignment, as we like to say in the business. He'll be back later this week, though. And to join me today, the man behind the glass, producer of The Drive, Dante Gomez. What's up, brother?
What's up, Anil? Thank you for having me today.
How you living?
Living good, dude. Football's over. It's kind of a weird time of the year. Watching a lot of college basketball now.
Yeah, Yale. Or BYU last night.
Oh, okay, yes. BYU came back. That was a fun one. I was like, I'm not that deep into college. I'm not watching Yale basketball.
Yeah, my bad.
A lot of Big 12 basketball. U of A Kansas was a great game Monday. Last night, BYU and Baylor was a great game. So kind of shifting the calendar away from football, more into basketball, more into the Olympics as that gets going as well.
I was just watching the Olympics in the studio with Amanda and Drew, watching some of the half pipe, the speed skating. It's always a nice little novelty. Every 4 years, you get the Olympics in the mix. It's fun. Real quick for the listener out there, I wish you guys could understand the show behind the show, because some of the conversations that Dante, Will, and I have when we do Denver Sports Tonight, sometimes I think those are better than the actual conversations we have on the air. So it's always a good time to hang out here with Dante and chop it up a little bit. So we talked about the Olympics, talking NBA today, a little bit, NHL, all that good stuff. But of course, we got to start with the Denver Broncos. And we've got some interesting conversation for you on the program today. I heard the morning show talking about it earlier. I know you know the numbers, but where do you think the Broncos would be with respect to Super Bowl odds and respect to division? Like, where do you think the Broncos rank up with the division, and where do they rank up with the AFC as a whole?
So before I saw the numbers, I would have said the Broncos should be maybe tied for first. I think them and the Chargers, and then the Chiefs, a little bit of a backseat there behind them. And then as far as Super Bowl odds, I think anywhere from maybe 6th to 15th, right in that area sounds about right. Obviously that's neither of those are accurate there, but that's where I would have guessed prior to checking. So a little surprising that there's lows they are in both categories, but I know the question here is, are they getting disrespected?
Right.
I don't quite see it that way, but I think it's fair if you're part of Broncos country to see it that way.
Well, here we are. Let's start with the Super Bowl odds. The Denver Broncos are not even in the top 10 for respective Super Bowl odds entering into the 2026 season. And look, a lot can happen. Free agent moves, trades, right? A lot of different things can shake out and change the overall number as we get closer and closer to training camp. I mean, the Super Bowl was less than a week ago, but it is interesting because you would think, in theory, a team that gets to a championship game in their respective conference probably somewhere around top 5, maybe 7, 8, right? The Broncos are all the way down at 12 at 20-1 odds. And just for perspective, the Jacksonville Jaguars are also at 22-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. San Francisco's at 18-1. The New England Patriots are 17-1. But you look up the leaderboard here a little bit. I mean, two teams in the division, which kind of feeds into our later conversation. The Kansas City Chiefs are at 16-1, and the Los Angeles Chargers are at 15-1. So this is a Broncos team that won the AFC West, won 14 regular season games, and is a Bo Nix injury away, or a lack thereof with the injury, from potentially going to the Super Bowl. And you're telling me they had the 12th best odds in the NFL? Doesn't really make sense to me, Dante.
I get that, but just because of what you did last year doesn't mean you're going to repeat the success this year. The Chiefs and the Eagles were the class of each conference last year. Neither team made it to a divisional round, I want to say, right? The Eagles lost in the wild card round.
Yep.
Chiefs fully missing the playoffs there. So the NFL is the ever-changing league. It's built to where when you're successful, they're going to make it tougher on you. They're going to give you a tougher schedule. They're going to give you a worse draft pick. So the league is not built for dynasties. That's why you hardly ever see dynasties. That's why it's so special what the Patriots were able to do, what the Chiefs were able to do. So I get it. It's one of the leagues where the playoff teams themselves change. You get, what is it, 5 new playoff teams basically every single season. So it's always changing, and it's hard to continue success. So I get why they're maybe a little bit down on the Broncos, but I would add that the Broncos aren't the only team that they're down on that had success this year. So I think it's a little much to take it personal here in Denver.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And when you kind of look at the odds as well, 3 of the top 5 teams with respect to shortest odds to win the Super Bowl are NFC teams. The 2 lone AFC teams are the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, which is essentially the consensus entering into last season. I mean, as long as Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are living and breathing and playing in their primes, they're probably always going to enter into a season with higher odds than that of the Denver Broncos to win the Super Bowl just because of who they are and the perception around those guys. So do you think it's disrespectful to have the Broncos at 20th?
20th?
Or 12th, excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
20 to 1.
12th feels about right. Like I said, I think
20th would be crazy.
Yeah, 20th is a bit high.
They're 20 to 1 odds.
Yes, 20 to 1 odds. But hey, if you're a Denver sports believer, if you're a Bo Nix believer, if you're a Sean Payton believer, that's just more money in your pocket if they go out and do it. So if anything, I don't think Broncos country should be complaining. Take advantage of it. If you think that's what this team is capable of, go out, put your money where your mouth is, and win some money on it if that's how you truly believe about, or feel about this team. To me, like I said, I said anywhere from 6 to 15 feels about right. I think there's a lot of teams that are kind of clumped in there. You mentioned the Jags. I think the Bears are also in that area. Yep. So I think there's a lot of teams that can go out and do it. And hey, we saw a team this year go out and win the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. I think they were 60 to 1 before the
crazy
year.
Number.
So no one really thought they were going to do it. So just because that's the odds doesn't mean that it's impossible for them to go out and do it. It just means that it's maybe a little less likely. But like I said, we just saw the Seattle Seahawks go out and do it. We just saw the New England Patriots in a Super Bowl. They were not supposed to be there either. Right. So teams come out of nowhere all the time. And why not? That the Broncos would be coming out of nowhere. Obviously, they're the 1 seed this year, so it's not completely off the radar. But as far as the odds go, teams come out of nowhere to go out and win the Super Bowl or appear in the Super Bowl all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And again, just for comparison's sake, the Broncos have equal odds with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans, right? 2 teams that made the playoffs last year. Obviously, Houston fell apart. Jacksonville also fell apart in their home game against the Buffalo Bills. So I don't think it's necessarily right or wrong. I think it's maybe about right in the general conversation with respect to what this Broncos team can be. And to Dante's point, like if you're a Bronco fan and you believe in the Broncos next year going into the Super Bowl, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that's a pretty good price, all things considered, for a team that just got to an AFC Championship game. Now, when it comes to the disrespectful conversation, I think the one that I have a bit more of a problem with, and again, this is reflective of the Super Bowl odds that translates now to the division odds. The Denver Broncos, who won 14 games, won the AFC West, and were, you know, had their best season in a long, long time. Not first, not second, but third with respect to odds to win the AFC West. This one is just absolutely ludicrous to me. The Los Angeles Chargers are the favorites at plus 170, followed by Kansas City at plus 175. The Broncos come in at plus 215. So it's not like there's a massive amount of separation between these 3 teams. But the fact, it's the principle to me that the Broncos have the 3rd best odds, exactly what they had last year with respect to standing entering into the season with the odds. Kind of crazy to me, Dante.
See, I don't know if I see it that way. Like I mentioned, a lot of teams that make the playoffs or that made the playoffs this year are not going to make the playoffs next year. And if you think the Broncos are being disrespected, guess who's favorites to win the NFC West next year?
Probably the Rams.
Do you think it's the team that just won the Super Bowl in a very convincing way? It's not the Seahawks. Guess who's odds-on favorite to win the AFC East next year? Do you think it's the team that just appeared in the Super Bowl?
Probably the Buffalo Bills.
It's the Buffalo Bills. And it goes on and on. Are the Bears being disrespected? They're 3rd favorite to win the NFC North. They just won the NFC North. Are the Jaguars being disrespected? They're not supposed to win their division. They just went out and won, 13 games?
Yeah, but
last year?
Not all of them are created equal, right? Like, I can understand where the Bears are priced because I think Green Bay is good, right? I mean, you're going to have Detroit likely bouncing back. To me, with Denver is, I don't know what the degree, like, I can make a stronger argument for the Rams over the Seahawks, despite the fact that the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. To me, the Broncos are as good, if not better, than the 3 teams respectively in their division. I understand Patrick Mahomes is coming back, but they got to retool that offense. I mean, I think they're going to be a competitive team, the Chiefs are this year. They're probably going to make the playoffs, right? But in a head-to-head matchup, I think I'll still like the Broncos in that game just because Denver's running it back with their defense. Bo Nix will be healthy. The Chargers, I understand they've fallen apart in the playoffs, but like, what have they necessarily shown? And I understand they've beat them in some regular season head-to-heads to the last handful of seasons as well. I just don't think the gap is as large with the Broncos compared to the other AFC West teams as maybe some of the other teams in their division.
I think that's fair too. And the gap isn't that big. I get that they're 3rd, but it's a difference of like 50 cents on the dollar per bet, basically. Yeah. So it's not a huge gap there. I think the Chiefs are overpriced, but I think you're going to get that in betting odds when it comes to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, when it comes to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, when it comes to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, because they've done it for so long. There's a long track record there. So I don't believe the Chiefs are better than the Broncos. We started off the show and I said that I think the Chargers and Broncos should be basically tied for odds on favorite to win the division. I'm pretty high on the Chargers. I get it. It's a projection. It's they haven't gone out and proven it. That they had a pretty solid year last year, given all their injuries. They were still able to go out and go to the playoffs. Not the most competitive game in New England, but they were beat up. They were missing both their world-class tackles. Justin Herbert had a broken hand. Amari Hampton was coming back from injury. And I get that there's a saying, Chargers are going to Charger. And that's a saying for a reason, because they do tend to blow it in the big moments. But I think Jim Harbaugh solves a lot of those issues. And I love the addition of Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. He is one of the younger creative minds in the NFL. We saw what he was able to do with Tua, and Tua's, I don't think anyone's going to argue this, a far less talented quarterback than what Justin Herbert is able to do. I like that Mike McDaniel leans into the run game, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Justin Herbert. They're going to be able to use their early round draft pick, Amari Hampton, a lot next year. I think Hampton's going to have a fantastic year next year in Mike McDaniel's system. Mike McDaniel should have been a Bronco, and we can argue that as well. But Mike McDaniel seems to get a lot out of all of his running backs, almost no-name guys. Raheem Mostert wasn't on a lot of people's radar, and he went out and had a fantastic year with the Dolphins. And there's Jeff Wilson was putting up numbers in a Dolphins uniform. So Mike McDaniel's able to use his running backs in very creative ways, and he's able to use the offensive line, which should be a lot better next year for the Chargers, in creative ways with that outside zone run scheme. Comes from I guess, it does come from the Mike Shanahan tree. More recently, the Kyle Shanahan tree, though, out in San Francisco. So I love the addition of Mike McDaniel. I think they have a solid defense from what we saw last year. I don't think anyone's arguing that either. And I think Jim Harbaugh is a ultimate culture guy, and he can reset that culture there. And let's not forget, a lot of people here in Denver wanted Jim Harbaugh to be the coach. You could even include not only people around Denver, the owners of the Denver Broncos wanted Jim Harbaugh to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. So obviously there's something there to what Harbaugh is able to do with these teams and reset their culture. And then you add a genius mind like Mike McDaniel. You have a talented quarterback. I think there's a lot to like there.
So let me ask you this. Are the Chargers your pick to win the AFC West then?
They are my pick to win the AFC West.
I was just trying to see if your conversation there and the points you're making lines up with your actual pick.
No, it does. And I said that yesterday. I'm probably going to bet on them to win the division. I think there's some good juice there. And I think there's something to be said that the hungry dog runs faster. And this team last year in the Chargers wasn't as successful as the Broncos. Maybe they want to be that version of themselves. And maybe they are saying, hey, if we were healthy last year, just like people in Denver are saying about the Broncos, could have appeared in the Super Bowl. I think people in LA and LA Chargers fans are saying the same thing. If we were fully healthy last year, maybe we're not in the Super Bowl, but we're winning the division. We're a lot closer to winning the AFC West this last season. They were able to get 11 wins with a pretty beat up team. So I only expect that to get even better next year.
That is fair. I'm going to go with Broncos till it ain't. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. So I guess you could say there's value on the Broncos. I understand they're third in the division, or third in odds to win the division. But again, it's not that far off with respect to where the Chargers are at to where the Broncos are at as well. But give me the Broncos. I've seen them win 14 games now. I think Bo Nix will be another year better. Look, I think the Chargers are going to be a good regular season team. That's usually been the case. I know under Brandon Staley, they were a bit up and down, but to Dante's point, with Jim Harbaugh, you expect them to be more consistent in that department. So I know we're not talking playoffs overall, but when it comes to the division, it's the Broncos division till it ain't. That is my opinion. But
real quick, I had two more examples as well of the teams that are being, quote unquote, disrespected by winning the division and then not being very close in the odds next year. NFC South. Guess where the Panthers are odds wise? Team that just won the NFC South.
They got to be second, right behind Tampa.
They're fourth to win the NFC South. The team that I would argue took the team to their limit in the LA Rams. I think the LA Rams were the best team in football this last year. I get they didn't win the Super Bowl. I still think they were the better team over the Seahawks, and they were a weird 2-point conversion away from hosting the NFC Championship instead of going to Seattle for the NFC Championship. And that changes a lot. As we know in football, hosting games can change a lot. So the Panthers took that LA Rams team to the brink in that wild card round. Also, the Steelers just won the AFC North. They're third favorite to win the AFC North.
That one I think, stomach a little bit more just because the AFC North kind of feels like the NFC West to me, where it's like these three teams that are all kind of bunched up, right? And then there's Cleveland, just like the Cardinals are kind of the redheaded stepchild, for lack of a better phrase there, in the NFC West. So that, like, there's different things that I can stomach in that perspective. But those are good points you bring up. We'll see.
There's 7 different division winners that are odds on not supposed to win their division.
And there's 8 divisions in football?
Yeah.
So, you put it that way, the Broncos are not exactly on an island on their own. But, okay, it is time to hit the turn, presented by the Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar. Check them out online and on Instagram at thebirdie.bar. All right, good football conversation. Let's segue to the baseball diamond, though. And look, you and I are both baseball guys. I've covered the Rockies for a long, long time. I was in the building a ton during that 2017 and 2018 playoff runs that they made. I got a soft spot for baseball. It's the sport that I grew up loving and I still enjoy probably the most to this day. Look, I understand the Rockies are essentially a down and out franchise. I mean, they don't even win 50 games last year. They kind of start to reinvent themselves a little bit this offseason by bringing in Paul DePodesta, who, of course, was kind of the orchestrator of the Moneyball movement with the Oakland Athletics way back when. Look, when spring training comes around, I kind of get this warm, fuzzy feeling. And I understand the Rockies aren't very good, but I guess it hasn't really been that cold here in the Mile High City. Like, usually it's kind of cold, it's icy, it's snowy. I'm ready for warm weather. So that part of it is not in play this year. But I'm also just always excited for baseball to come back. Get down to Coors Field, watch a little ball, whether it's the opposing team coming into town or the Rockies trying to pull off a win, albeit not many of them last season. So before we kind of get into the Rockies as a whole, big picture thought on kind of where the franchise is at right now.
I think they're on the upswing. At least you could say that. Obviously, it's not been good the last 2 years, losing over 100 games the past 2 seasons. I think they're getting it back on track. I think they're getting back to competency with the hiring of Paul DePodesta, with some of the signings that they've made in the last couple of days or last couple of weeks as well. And I'm with you. Baseball season it's kind of that light at the end of the tunnel when it's winter time and you see those pitchers and catchers report down in Arizona or down in Florida, and you see it's sunny and 75 down there. It's like, oh wow, we're not that far away from getting that up here in Denver. Obviously, it's been a very light winter here, so it doesn't quite have that same feeling, that same warmth and comfort to it. But I think there's something to be said that when the sports calendar kind of turns from that winter football season into spring training, into summer, into baseball.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. And here's what I would say, kind of big picture thought on the Rockies is it seems like they actually have a plan for the first time in a long time, really since the kind of post-Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, David Dahl, DJ LeMahieu era Rockies. I know Chuck Nasty stuck around through the thick and the thin, but for the first time in a long time, it feels like the Rockies at least have some sort of a vision with Paul DePodesta at the helm. They didn't really make any splash signings with respect to position players, but they have added a couple of pitchers in the last week in particular. They just signed Jose Quintana yesterday, Tomoyuki Sugano earlier this week as well, and earlier in the offseason, they signed Michael Lorenzen, who's a relatively household name, I guess you could say, in Major League Baseball. So clearly a concerted effort from the Rockies to try to bolster their pitching staff. Got Antonio Senzatella, among some other guys, Chase Dollander. We'll see what they can do overall. So I like the pitching first approach for the Rockies. The question is if it will work.
See, I love the signings that they made. And like I said, they're getting back to competency. And that's what they need in this rotation because the lineup is young and it's not the reason they were losing a lot of their baseball games, I would argue. I think the pitching staff was atrocious last year. Some stats on the guys they signed here. Jose Quintana, over the last 2 years, 300 innings pitched. So it's 150 per year if you average that. 55 starts over the last 2 seasons. ERA in the high 3s over those last 2 seasons. Michael Lorenzen, same thing, 140 innings pitched last year, mid-4s ERA, 26 starts last year. Tomoyuki Sugano, 157 innings pitched last year, mid-4s ERA, 30 starts. And the reason those were my key points there was because the best ERA in the starting rotation last year was an inch or slightly under 5, 4.98. So you're looking at 3 guys here that already have a better ERA than the best ERA. The rest of the guys were all in the 6s. There was nobody even in the 5s disgusting. In their starting rotation. The most starts last year.
That's gross.
Yeah, right? So the fact that you're just getting to me, you are raising the floor of the team. And that's to me the key with when you have a bad team And the old Suns general manager, remember the Suns had a 10-year spread there of just being terrible during the beginning of the Devin Booker era and right prior to that. The James Jones, I believe is his name, the general manager, he was LeBron James' teammate. His whole thing about turning that franchise around was it's not about raising the ceiling right away. It's about raising the floor. And I think these three signings do that. Also, as far as the starts go last year, Freeland made 31, Marquez made 26. Nobody else made over 25 starts last year. So the fact that these three guys should be more reliable, more middle of the pack guys versus the outliers of the 6 ERAs, the guys making 20 starts. And you add those three guys to a young, talented arm, I like to think, and Chase Dolander, I think the rotation should be greatly improved next year.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, everything that Dante just laid out is exactly why the Rockies went 43-119 a season ago. It's like almost hard for me to process that. They were 18-63 on the road, 25-56 at home. Look, they're going to be bad. I don't think anyone's talking about the Rockies even sniffing the playoffs. They'll be out of contention probably by the second week of May, if I had to guess, right? But I mean, I think this team is going to be considerably better. And when I say considerably, it's not like, like I said, a playoff caliber team, but they're going to probably win 50-ish, 60-ish games if I had to guess. I mean, it's hard to be worse than they were with 43 wins last year.
Yeah, I would guess around high 50s, low 60s.
Yeah, which is pretty significant improvement compared to what they were last year.
Yes. Again, that's not going to be world beaters. It's still going to be, you'll look up at the division and the Dodgers are 40 games ahead of them by the end of the year, something like that. But it's going to look a lot better on the field. It's going to be more competitive out there. And I think that's what this team needs. They need to just be more competitive into the season, have some games that matter, have some at-bats that matter. And that's how you really grow a young team like what the Rockies have, especially as far as their position players go.
Yeah, 100%. Well, speaking of position players, one guy that will not be out there start the season, hasn't been much out there for the Colorado Rockies in his tenure with the organization, is Kris Bryant, as it was announced yesterday that he will begin the season on the 60-day injured list, which I don't know if that's a surprise. I mean, this is the conversation around Kris Bryant last season is like, is he going to be forced to retire because of the injuries that he's been dealing with to his back? Get this stat. He's missed a total of 478 games, not just the total 478 games missed of a possible 648 games. I mean, this contract is 7-year, what is it, $180 million, I think, somewhere around there. It's terrible. I know people want to compare it to the Russell Wilson deal that he signed with the Denver Broncos. We're at the point of no return, I feel like, right now with Kris Bryant.
No, absolutely not. And it's going to probably get ugly here in terms of the organization's going to want him to retire, and he's not going to want to have to give back the money.
I wouldn't retire if I was him.
I wouldn't either. And you saw that in Washington with Steven Strasburg, same kind of thing.
Good call.
Where he at one point was just not able to go, and his arm it just wasn't going to get back.
Yeah,
it was dead. It just wasn't going to get back to where it needed to be medically. And the organization wanted him to retire, and he was on the opposite side of it, like you and like most people would be like, hey, I'm not giving back my money just so I can retire. I'm going to keep working at it and trying to get back. And I get that. I don't think Kris Bryant wants to miss all these games. I don't think he's happy with that. I'm sure it eats away at him. I'm sure he feels some guilt inside about, hey, this team offered me and pays me all this money, and I'm not able to go out there and even attempt to try to earn it back for them. So it's going to get ugly here. And I expect at some point they're going to come to some buyout agreement and maybe the buyout is literally, it's just, we're going to pay you all your money and you're just going to not be around the organization anymore. It might be something like that, kind of what Washington had to do with Steven Strasburg, but I don't see him. I guess you can answer too. I don't see him ever suiting up in a Colorado Rockies uniform again.
Well, let's just assume he was able to get healthy. I mean, outside of the fact that they're paying him what they're paying him, there's not really a reason to, right? Like, this is a young, developing team. Like Kris Bryant, again, he's not good enough to play on a contender right now, but like if he was 100% and was playing any way in which he did, like with the Chicago Cubs or the San Francisco Giants, right, he's probably not a fit for this Colorado Rockies team. So it's the dollar figure that's kind of holding up this whole process right now. And let's separate it into two schools of thought. I agree with you. I genuinely probably feel bad for Kris Bryant. I'm sure he's got some stuff eating at him on the inside of like, what am I doing? What's going on? Can I ever play baseball again? Like Kris Bryant, the human, no one wants to have to go through that, man. debilitating back pain to the point that you can't play the sport that you love and you're getting paid to do. That sucks. But on the other hand here, the Rockies are kind of just in this dead zone where, to your point, they probably have to figure out a way to buy out the contract. I don't know if he's a good or a bad or really any influence at all on the guys in that clubhouse. So that's an interesting conversation too. But at the end of the day, the reason why I'm not as hung up on the Chris Bryant situation this year as I was last year is because it doesn't seem like the Rockies are trying to sell hope that Chris Bryant will come back. It seems like they kind of know as an organization where they're at. The rubber's kind of met the road with what Chris Bryant's future is in Colorado, and it's probably nothing.
Yes, exactly. And for now, there's no reason to talk about DFAing him, because as long as he's on the injured list, he's not taking up a roster spot as far as some young guy that can go out there, and they're not holding anybody back. The roster's still going to be full at that point. So as long as he's on the injured list, there's no reason to really talk about DFAing him or cutting him outright. Once he's healthy and able to play, then I think you can have that conversation of, is it best for the Rockies organization to DFA him, to cut him, and just move on completely off of him. So we'll see what happens if he's able to get to that point, and if he's able to even think about trying to make a comeback here and play professional baseball again at a major league level. And I get that for the organization, it's really a tough spot for them. And the Rockies are not the type of organization that can afford to miss on a big money contract like this. They're not the Dodgers that can just throw more money at it the next year. And I respect the Monfort family for going out and spending a contract like this. Obviously, it was overpaid.
But they also did it because they lost Arenado. Like, you got to think about the timing of it too. Is you trade away your franchise player for a bundle of scraps, and then you're going to sign this guy who has no connection to the organization. Rockies fans would have just preferred to keep Arenado, and I understand that had to do with both parties. Arenado wanted out, all that kind of stuff as well. But I think the timing of the signing also makes it that much worse.
I think that's fair. But again, I respect them for, one, spending, two, trying to sell hope to this organization. I think there's something to that, and it just stinks when you swing and miss like this, where it does set the franchise back. I will say, you related it to the Russell Wilson contract. I still have the Russell Wilson contract being a worst contract in Denver sports history for a couple of reasons. One, he never even played on the contract, got traded before it even, or he got cut before it even kicked in there. And then two, baseball's not a salary cap sport. So technically you could go out and keep spending more and more and more. The Rockies weren't willing to do that in this scenario, but there's nothing contractually holding them back from going out and spending more money the past couple off seasons. It's just that they're not the Dodgers, they're not the Mets, they're not the Yankees. They can't buy their way out of these problems and spend more money on the problem. They have to nail these signings when they do make these signings, and this certainly was not that.
100%. Good stuff today, my man Dante. Appreciate you hopping on with us. For everyone watching online, we appreciate you guys as well. Richie will be back later this week. Rocky spring training is here. If you feel like the Broncos are being disrespected in the odds, feel free to check those out for yourself, and make sure to follow us on social media and check us out online at denversports.com. That's it for today's rundown.
I do what I love.